You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies, and today my guest is costume designer Molly Emma Rowe, and we're going to talk about such a lovely little film, which I adored, is Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy, which is now streaming on Peacock. So welcome to the show, Molly.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm so glad we were able to do this because I know you're in England and you are working on a night shoot and it's late where you are. So I appreciate you being able to be on the show today for sure. And I'm really looking forward to talk about this film. Of course, we all love Bridget Jones. Who doesn't love Bridget Jones? And this one is just, I mean, each one is adorable, but I think this one is especially adorable right now. So let's talk about how did you get attracted to this project? How did you end up working on this project?
Attracted to is a different question. I've been a huge fan of Bridget Jones since I was really young, since I was a teenager. Helen's columns came out in the UK when I was a teenager, and I think I was maybe 15 when the first Bridget Jones book came out, and then the movie. So I've really grown up with all things Bridget. So. Um, I recently, a couple of years ago, worked on a film with Working Title, who produced the movie called The Swimmers. I knew them. I had a relationship with them, and they asked me to come in and meet with Michael Morris, who is our incredible director of Bridget Jones. And yeah, it was kind of creative love at first sight, let's say.
How wonderful. How wonderful that you didn't have to do too much to get the job. So that's great. Because
It sounds like that, but yeah, no.
it's such a tough business. I know how difficult it can be, for sure, for sure. So, obviously, this is an iconic character. We're 25. I can't believe it's 25 years since the first Bridget Jones. That just blew me away when I was reading that. And here we are at a different point in her life. How did you work with well, let's talk about Renee Zellweger. I mean the fabulous Renee Zellweger. I mean, she's just always amazing in everything that she's in. But here she is 25 years later doing Bridget Jones still and at different phases in her life. But she's also the executive producer on Mad About the Boy. So talk a little bit about what it was like to work with the iconic Renee Zellweger.
I would challenge anybody to find any negativity about Renee. She's a very, very extraordinary human being. She's very kind, and she's very generous, and she's very funny, and she's really smart, and she's truly this magical kind of force. I really think this. I'm really blown away by her, and I've learned so much from her. And Renee is something else without Bridget Jones. But then to add Bridget into the mix for a Londoner, it's very, very special. And I actually remember Renee is in a film called Love and a 45, which I was obsessed with when I was a teenager. I loved that movie so much. No one's really, when I mention it, everyone's like,
Yeah,
you
I've never
know,
heard of it.
I was like, you mean Jerry Maguire? And I'm like, no, no. I really loved this movie. Yes, it was kind of there's many Renees that I've been completely in awe of for a really long time. But Bridget is of course the one. She's everybody. I think the reason that Bridget's a character that we come back to all the time, and so many people relate to her, and so many people find themselves in her. And I think, that's so much down to the work of Renee and the magic of Renee. I think she really kind of, embodies every character that she plays, and she's very, very generous in allowing you to, like, letting you in, I guess, and then kind of trusting you to work with her to find the new version of that. I think.
And it had to be. I would think a little difficult since there has been three other Bridget Jones, and now you're coming in on the fourth, and there had been other costume designers through the years. I'm sure, I don't know if the same one was on each one of these or if there were different costume designers. So, how did you approach it? Approach this particular chapter in Bridget's life?
So I think, as you rightly say, there have been three costume designers. So every single Bridget Jones film has had a new costume designer. For me, it was very, very, very important to honor the work of all of these three filmmakers who have gone before me. You know, they with Renee have created Bridget Jones, and it's not a situation for me to come in and this is the new Bridget and kind of change everything about her. It's about honoring the work that's gone before, and kind of looking at her a decade later, I suppose, and kind of considering, what's happened to her and what her life is now, and then designing around that, but always kind of going back to who Bridget has always been. That was very, very important to me.
And you, when I was doing my research, you had some throwbacks to some of her costumes from the earlier films. So let's talk a little bit about that. It was interesting because obviously I watched the movie and I loved it, and I saw certain things that I went, oh yeah. Well, the reason I saw certain things is like because I love the end credits when they're showing some of the other movies, and you go, oh, she had that on, and on her head, certain things that she had. And I said, oh, yes, so you see that when you do the end credits, but unless you've watched all three before you watch this one, you might not pick up on all of those things, but you did bring in some of her iconic costumes. So let's talk about the pajamas. Let's talk about
Well, the pajamas don't exist anymore, the original ones, so we had to recreate them. And it was very important to us all that the audience don't question that they're the original pajamas. So I camera tested
penguin
the
pajamas.
penguin ones.
Iconic penguin pajamas.
Yes, that I see when I close my eyes at night. Um, So I camera tested lots of red, different tones of red with our amazing DP Susie Lavelle, because the original Bridget Jones was shot on film, and our Bridget Jones was shot digitally. Although it looks like it was shot on film, it's very, very beautiful, beautiful work by Susie. But film goes through a lot of process from what you see with your eye to what ends up in the cinema. So it was very important to us that something like the red of those pajamas felt like the red from the original film after it had been through all the processes. So we had to do a lot of camera testing to get that right. And then when we finally got that right, we printed up the penguins, and then Maker made the new pajamas. And then I have a really incredible breakdown team, um, who basically their job is to make all of the clothes look worn and used and authentic and lived in, and give everything that kind of feel. And with the pajamas we were like, okay, these have been worn and washed for 20 years at this point, so they need to be really faded. And we chipped buttons, and we kind of frayed the edges and bleached the color out of sections. So I think the audience kind of mostly think that they're the original pajamas. So those guys did a really amazing job.
They did for sure, for sure. So we'll go through a couple of different things that are sort of, again, iconic. The gray hooded coat that Bridget famously wore to her parents' annual turkey curry buffet. Uh, so talk about that. Why you decided to bring that coat back, and have that be a part of her wardrobe.
I think we were very lucky that this coat and the plum scarf that she wears are both held in archive at Universal. So they actually exist. They are the original pieces. So it was very exciting. I kind of got sent a list of everything that was held and was like, okay, I'd like this and this and this and this. And I was like, oh God, that coat's really there. This is really cool. Like, we need to get it to just see it, right? Like, it's a piece of history. So this box arrived from LA, and it came straight to the costume department, and we opened it, and it had all the things that I'd selected, but also the props department had selected all the original diaries. So we kind of opened this box, and my team were like, oh, there was a lot of kind of screeching and excitement because all the diaries were on the top, and then all the costumes were underneath. So we were all, it was really very cool, and I think I was very, very, very happy because, part of what I wanted to do to create the authenticity within Bridget's wardrobe is think about how, fashion is cyclical and how we keep hold of things and how we reach for things as we get older, and especially if we're feeling nostalgic or if we're going through a grief, or there's different kind of emotions, why we reach for things in our wardrobe, and to have that kind of original thing, that really was in the first movie, felt like we were really, honoring Rachel, the first designer, but also, the legacy of these films, and a realistic way to kind of live your life and have a wardrobe as well.
Exactly. Yeah, again, there's so many other little things in this that you have brought back. Was that always uh, a conscious decision that you were going to do that from the start, or did that evolve as you got involved with the project?
I think a few things were scripted. So the penguin pajamas were scripted, and Mark's jumper was scripted. We also recreated that for Billy to wear at the end. Um, but everything else was, it just sort of happened along the way. I mean, obviously having access to some of the archival pieces kind of drove those decisions, and I was very, very keen. There was a pair of knee-high boots that she wears right at the end when she's with Wallaker in the snow, which are from the third movie. She always wears her Tiffany necklace. She's always worn the classic heart necklace from Tiffany. So it was kind of, really studying and drawing all of those little things, and seeing what we could pepper in with some new things to kind of create this wardrobe. But I was always very certain that I wanted, or I needed Bridget to feel very authentic to the audience.
And she is very authentic. In many ways, yeah, it's been a long time, but she has remained true to herself. She didn't, her style and things. I mean, although they really didn't change in many ways.
No, and I think you kind of. I think we meet Bridget very deep in her grief. I think that's a very important point. So we stripped a lot of the color away. We put her in a lot of very kind of comfortable things and layers, and lots of Mark's old clothes. When she's in Hampstead Heath, she's wearing like a shirt that we're saying is his, and a card, like a slouchy kind of big cardi that she reaches for a lot in the movie. And my father died when I was a teenager, and I really thought about what my mum did at that time, and she would always kind of reach and wear things that were my father's, and I think that really kind of resonated with a lot of people. I think that that's something that people really do, and actually since the movie's come out, my mum's been talking to her friends, and they all say that they still do this, and she still does this. So there's a real kind of genuine comfort and nostalgia, I think, that comes from that. But what we wanted to do throughout the movie as we kind of go through the film with Bridget is to sort of bring her back to life a little bit and bring her back to the Bridget that we know. And so it was a lot of kind of thinking about what that is. And Bridget's very, very well known for her short skirts
Yes.
and her tiny kind of little cropped cardigans. And I think it was very interesting for me because we meet Bridget now in her early 50s, and my thoughts are, why shouldn't she wear those things still? Why shouldn't she wear short skirts? You don't kind of hit 50 and suddenly start dressing differently. And I'm in my mid 40s, and I'm probably wearing shorter skirts than I've ever worn before. I think we sort of hit this kind of confidence where we care a lot less about what other people think and other people's critics. I think, and Bridget spent a lot of her life, um, being in situations, let's say, that we all kind of relate to, and kind of getting through them. But I think, as we get older, we care a lot less what people think about us, I hope. And I wanted to make a very subtle statement that we can wear whatever we want, whoever we are. And if it makes us feel good about leaving the house, about getting through our day, then that should really be celebrated. So it was a very kind of subtle way to make Bridget Bridget, but also maybe to allow us to be ourselves as well.
I love it. That is so beautiful. It's so perfect. Exactly right. Exactly right. And I loved how her colors did change as she started to get happier. Then you went to lighter colors, more pinks and, more pastels and, more, I think a little bit more flowers maybe in there too. I'm not sure. Subtle, little subtle things. And it was obviously when I'm watching this film, I was thinking about the costumes. Because I knew I was going to be interviewing you. So I paid a lot more attention to what she was wearing.
Want you to get out the costume kind of overview. Yeah, we wanted to. So for her first date with Rockstar, we just wanted her to look really lovely and confident, and kind of, I really wanted her to wear a denim jacket for that. She wears a denim jacket when she goes on her mini break with Daniel Cleaver in the first film, and I think a denim jacket is something I think that we wear from when we're a little kid all the way, through all ages until it's the most timeless thing. And also it's for everybody, it's definitely non-gender specified piece. And I think, I just felt like it's youthful, but also it's timeless. And that's what we should be saying about Bridget at that time. And then, yeah, then as you say, we kind of got back to the pinks, which feel very Bridget. There's that really beautiful scene. I love it so much when Rockstar turns up again after the ghosting, when Bridget's at work, rehearsing, and she's wearing these kind of super vibrant orange pants with a pink cardigan. And, in that moment, she's so vulnerable, but she's so sure of herself, and she's so strong in that moment. And I loved the idea, the pink cardigan's always kind of been quite synonymous with Bridget. It's very soft, it's very feminine, it's very kind of endearing, but there was such a strength to those orange pants. It's like we can be two things at once, and watching Renee in that scene was very, very moving to film. She's being so sure of herself, but that you can see the emotion within her. I mean, she's a very, very special actress, but it really kind of, yeah, I guess I've said it already. Like, you can be two things can be true at once. And I think we were trying to kind of, subtly get that across visually as well.
And you did. Yeah, it's interesting. That's why I love what I do, because you learn so much about, the magic of making movies and, all that goes into it. And as a viewer, that we're not aware. It's there, it's subtle, but how aware are we that, all the thought that went into each costume that she wore and what it meant and how she felt when she was wearing it and all of it. It's just so fascinating to hear you talk about that. And I hope when people listen to this, when they watch this film, they'll have a different appreciation when watching it and paying attention to the costumes in a different way than they may have beforehand.
I think our job ultimately is to help the actor. You know, we tell a little bit of the story with them. We help them kind of tell the story visually, and I think that's it's really special, and it's really kind of, and I think with contemporary clothes, it's sort of almost best when nobody realizes that there's a costume designer on something contemporary, because it's authentic to the piece and everybody's kind of living now. And I often get asked, do I prefer to design period or contemporary? And we all prefer period because we can say, no, 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 sorry, it would not have been like that in this time. Um, whereas I always joke, everyone has an opinion about jeans and trainers, and you can't kind of get your own way so easily. So, I think that when it's a really true collaboration, which I really believe that this film is, with the production designer Cave, who just created the most magical, believable, authentic world. There was a real cohesion between all of the departments, and we all kind of believed and supported what everyone else was doing. And I think, I think it's very evident within the movie.
Yeah, it really is. I have to point out one dress that I absolutely fell in love with, and I went, I want that dress. And maybe you know which one I'm talking
No,
about.
I don't. I'm like, which
It,
one?
it's the and I don't know the name of the actress. It's the Josette Simmons,
TV show
Oh,
for
Josette.
Lisa.
and I that rosy pink dress with the big sleeve at her birthday party. I
Happy birthday party.
love that dress. I wanted it.
It's very cool, isn't it? I know. I mean, dressing Talitha was so fabulous. Like Josette is an icon.
Oh my
And we
God.
were just
Oliver.
like,
All of her clothes were amazing, but go on and talk about it because she's tall and thin and sophisticated, and her clothes just show that off. But they're all exquisite.
and I think, in a very different way, Talitha's character is saying, do what you want, live your life and be authentic to yourself. And Talitha's authenticity is maybe not everyday authenticity, but it's hers.
Right, right, right. But I bet you had a ball dressing her.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was very, very fun coming up with the concept for Talitha and Miranda's show, the Better Women show.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. We went around a lot of references and a lot of kind of, but we really loved the idea that these two, incredibly smart, successful women were just sort of doing this show that they were sort of a little bit furious about all the time, but were just being the most fabulous version of themselves at every minute. I think I know there's a scene where Miranda's wearing a vintage Jean Paul Gaultier two-piece that I found at Portobello, and it was like, I'm so happy that I can just put that on screen. It's really cool.
Yeah. I bet you have a blast doing what you do. I think it would be so much fun dressing everybody and making them look beautiful and or whatever they were supposed to be feeling in that particular scene. Let's talk about the men a little bit, even though the women are more fun. But let's just talk about the men because I'm sure that has each one Rockster, Leo Woodall, which I'm madly in love with. Mad About the Boy was perfect. I just think he's wonderful. I just think he's adorable. So let's talk about, the clothes that you chose for him, and then we'll go to Mr. Wallaker too and Daniel Cleaver because they're all iconic. Well, Daniel Cleaver's iconic in his own way, but let's talk about Rockster.
So with Rockstar, this is a new character to the franchise. Obviously, he's very different to anyone that we've ever come across in Bridget Jones before. So, you know, it was exciting to create a new character, and also, a much younger character as well. And we wanted to make him seem very timeless. Sorry, I had to readjust myself. I put my hand in front of the camera. I apologize. Um, so yeah, we wanted to create something very timeless for him. So I looked at lots of old references of James Dean, of course, and like, what is it? What is it about menswear that just feels like that thing? And it's always a t-shirt and jeans, a t-shirt and jeans, a t-shirt and jeans. Which interestingly is much easier than it seems. So we tried quite a lot of t-shirts and quite a lot of jeans. I think everybody knows how hard it is to go jean shopping. So unfortunately, when you're a costume designer, it's actually no easier. Uh, there's no secret that we're not telling anyone. It's just about trying everything on. So yeah, I think when we got that kind of look, he's just very easy, and he's in he's in a very different socioeconomic bracket to Bridget and her friends as well. So that was kind of very important to look at and think about. So we had lots of vintage t-shirts, and he always wears the same boots when he's at work, when he's dating, whatever he's doing. So yeah, he was really interesting. And I think, you know, Leo's so cute and his character's so lovely in the film, actually. I think it's very beautifully dealt with, their situation. So we need to warm to him all the time.
Yes. All right, real quick, because we only have about a minute. So let's talk a little bit about Mr. Wallaker, and then let's go to Hugh Grant's character, Daniel Cleaver. So just real fast, because we only, as I said, we have about a minute.
Sure. So Mr. Wallaker as a teacher, I think he's the most similar to Mark Darcy, actually. Maybe we realize that Bridget has a type. They have a lot of conflict. He's quite uptight when we meet him. But there's also, the kids at the school adore him, and are very drawn to him, and he's a very warm person. So I designed and we made all of his suits and cords, and I was thinking a lot about old teachers in the UK would always be in tweeds and cords and kind of bashed up things like that. So that's what he's wearing, but we just kind of elevated them into leading man status, I suppose, and contemporary status as well. And, he wears them with denim shirts and woolen ties. So there's a kind of warmth to him, but he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
I have a lot of teacher friends in the UK, and they're pretty cool.
Yeah, he was a really cool. And then for Hugh Grant's character, you used. Let's talk about the tailor, real fast.
So speaking to Hugh was obviously very, very important. We didn't see Daniel Cleaver in the last film. The last time we saw him was 20 years ago. So it was very important for me to understand who Daniel Cleaver was to Hugh. Back then he's done many things since then. So I wanted to kind of really kind of go back and work out what that was. And there's a really incredible Savile Row tailor called Richard James, who made all of Daniel Cleaver's suits originally. And Richard doesn't cut anymore. So my tailor very kindly tracked down another tailor who used to work with Richard, because I really wanted to offer Hugh somebody who had an understanding of the flair of Richard and what he used to do. So, and also then Hugh was like, well, if it goes wrong, then it's your fault, and that's okay. I was like, okay. But it was really amazing. We made him bespoke suits, which is quite a hefty process. So we had a lot of fittings and we had a lot of meetings. And I think, we never wanted Daniel to look tragic. I know that he talks about how maybe he's become tragic within the film, but it was very important that he didn't look like that. He has to just be Daniel Cleaver, who we all fell in love with, whether we wanted to or not.
Yes.
So yeah, it was a great treat to kind of work with him and create that together and make sure that he felt like he was Daniel, but a couple of years on, let's say.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Molly. This has been enlightening. I appreciate your making time so we could do this today. Everyone, if you don't have Peacock, go ahead and subscribe to Peacock. So you can watch the latest installment of Bridget Jones. And if you loved all of the other Bridget Jones films, you will really love this one. And it's Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy. And it is just fun. It's just a fun, fun movie as always. And thank you, Molly. You've enlightened us about each character and their costumes. And as I said, when you watch the film now, you'll have a new appreciation of the clothing that each character wears. So thank you so much. And good luck on your next project.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Jan.
You're so welcome, Molly. Take care. Bye-bye.